Hey, welcome back forward for the road, everybody.
All right, welcome back to Forward for the Road, everybody. This is your host, NoShame. We got Drifter and my brother Pacman from Chosen Few in the house. How you guys doing?
Doing really good.
Doing good.
Good to hear. Good to hear. So we'll just get right to it. My brother Pacman here, he went on a recent Europe trip, which we want to get to talking about. But before we get there, why don't you just give us a little background about yourself, how you got started in the motorcycle community, and how you ended up in the club world.
Well, my story is a little interesting. You know, I came out of the Navy, hadn't ever sat on a bike, much less rode one. Even though I grew up in the LA, Long Beach area, never even really noticed motorcycle clubs or anything like that. So I got my first bike in 2011. It was a sport bike. And I joined I found, guys that like to ride, and it turns out it was a club. And I rode with them for about 3 years or so. And they were a support club for Chosen Few. So after, being exposed to the club and, some of the guys and being at the clubhouse and seeing how things go, naturally coming from the military, especially, I wanted to experience that brotherhood and that level of brotherhood. And so I made the decision to prospect for Chosen Few in 2015. So it was a long road. Sometimes I feel like I've been there for 20 years. Sometimes I feel like I've been there for 2 years. I'm always trying to learn different things. And obviously, we're meeting all new people in different areas. So, just keep growing and keep trying to understand his lifestyle as much as I can.
So I got a question for you, man.
Yes,
so it
sir.
sounds like, don't do that. So it sounds like, you joined your club because of the men that you met and how you were drawn to what they were doing, right? How much of a surprise and a kind of a blessing was it whenever you realized, when you started hanging around, the history of that club?
So when I was still in the support club, obviously I did my research on Chosen Few before I even, went to my first meeting, and learning the history, what was available on, publicly, and even talking to some of the older guys that have been in for a long time. The history of the club is really what drew me to it. My time spent in the Navy, I had some of my best friends, and still to this day, they were from like the deep South, white guys. And I came in not really looking that they were going to be kind of cool. And
those Southern white guys, man, you gotta watch out for them.
I had my reservations, but these guys, it really took the stigma or the stereotype away, and that exposed me to being able to have brothers of a different race. Because growing up, it wasn't like that in Long Beach in the '90s. So to be able to come into a club with the kind of history this is, with being being the first multiracial, outlaw club in the world, that is a lot to live up to, but it's something that definitely drew me to it. I'm not sure that I would have been cut out for any other type of club if that didn't allow multiple races. Now, again, nothing against those that kind of do their own thing, but for me, this was the right direction.
Yeah, you gotta stay true to yourself, man.
So you had like a racing background. But did that start while you were in the club scene, or was that prior to the club?
That started, like I said, I got my first bike in 2011. It was a 2009 R6. Never had ridden before. I ended up totaling that bike in like 9 months. It was, I was 29. It was, trying to do stupid stuff, stunts, and I went to the canyons, and then for whatever reason, it clicked. It was one of those things where, all right, this is what I'm good at. And then natural progression, it took from the canyons to the racetrack, do some track days. And again, it was just one of those things that kind of fell into my lap. I was decent at it. And so I started racing. And I was racing before I joined Chosen Few. And luckily, when I joined the club, I'm thinking it was going to be a hindrance because, we have club runs and some of those fell on race weekends. But, the club fully supported my racing, regardless of what it did to, my run participation. They would, go out of their way to show up to the races. And, that meant a lot to me. It was good to have people that, normally that's not their environment, but they came out anyway to, show their support. And yeah, it meant a lot to me and made me push harder.
That's really cool, man. That's where my club started out in racing back in the 30s. So, you get that bug, man. That's it. You're done.
Yeah, it was one of those things that, I didn't see myself racing motorcycles at all, much less, 3 years after I first started riding. But it was, it literally fell into my lap. And it was one of those things that, when you find something that you're good at, but you don't know you're good at, and it just clicked and everything about racing just made sense. And I had a pretty successful career, all things told.
So what kind of racing were you doing?
Circuit road course racing. So I had in the beginning, I had a 2012 R1, and then I took a few years off when I got my Harley and did some, solo riding around the country for a while. And then got into the Iron Butt Association, started doing those. And then I went back to racing in 2018 with a new bike, a 2017 R1, and kind of picked up where I left off. So it was good. The competitiveness was what brought me back.
You got a sponsor yet? If not, let's start asking right now.
I'm sorry, what was that?
You got a sponsor yet? If not, let's start asking for one right now.
So, bringing up sponsors, the good thing is that, I have no problem reaching out in that arena and asking, companies to help out. And I was so lucky and blessed to have a ton of big name companies supporting me throughout racing. And they, even with the club lifestyle, they loved it. They loved the diversity that, a club member brings to the motorcycle racing world, because it's none of them out there, except for myself, that I can think of that were actually a part of a club and actually in racing as well. So they love that aspect of it. And for me, I was just lucky to have that kind of support again from these big name companies. Not to name drop too much, but Pirelli was one of my biggest ones. And
hey, name drop, man. Tell us all about it.
Pirelli was one of my first ones that jumped on in 2013 when I was still doing track days, and I stuck with them throughout my entire racing career. They supported everything. They loved the pictures with the club, and they just keep being yourself and keep being you. We love it. The social media, they loved it. Another company, Superbike Unlimited, I got with them when their shop opened in 2012, and I reached out to them in 2013 for sponsorship. And I'm like, this is not going to happen. And they said, yeah. And I was the first motorcycle rider that they sponsored ever. And now they're constantly on the national level at different bike teams and everything. And it was cool to be, a part of that growth in the beginning.
That's nice.
That's awesome, man.
I love to hear that. I love to hear those stories like that. That's great.
That's the cool thing about watching like your progression through things, because we started prospecting the same year. So I've always known that you were into the racing thing. It's funny now, like when you see like some of the new guys come in, like, anybody race in the club, and then Pacman will just drop a video and the thing like, holy shit, that's like fucking crazy. But like what I think is crazy is the amount of, like you mentioned, you do a lot of solo riding and then a lot of long trips and stuff like that. And I mean, me and you kind of ride in the same way, where it's just like I have no problem doing a couple 1,000-mile days back to back. Like that's how I prefer it. It is not everybody's style of riding. How many Iron Butt certificates do you have stacked up now?
Currently, I'm sitting at 8 Iron Butt awards, and I have a second place with the Tour of Honor for Utah. I was the second person to finish that state. And then they have some other, auxiliary certificates for visiting different memorials, like Statue of Liberty throughout the U.S. I got one for visiting like 13 of those. If you don't know, there's a bunch of mini Statue of Liberties all over the U.S. And one of the challenges was to visit as many as you could and document them. So I got about 13 of those throughout the states. And yeah, so hopping on a bike and going a couple thousand miles is not really a big deal. I actually love it. And I don't blast through. You know, you would be surprised how many miles you can cover while still enjoying the ride. You know, if I see something cool, I'm gonna stop and take a picture. You know, have a drink of Gatorade and enjoy the sights, and then keep back on pushing.
Do they have a special certificate for stopping off at all the go-go bars? Because I could go.
I'm sure we can add that one in and put a request in.
I'm in. You got me.
So recently, you took a trip over to Europe. That's something that you do like annually, right?
We do it roughly every 2.5, 3 years.
Okay.
Me and the family, my wife and son. She's from Germany, so we always fly into Germany first. And my tendency is generally to leave her in Germany and kind of go do my own thing in Europe. And the last time prior to this one, I went to Italy and Amsterdam, Switzerland, Austria, and kind of just went to go see the sights. This last trip, though, was a little bit of planning. You know, I definitely had a goal to go visit this other club, and I let them know back in October of last year that I was heading out that way. And you know, I talked to the one of the nomads, and he's my main guy I talked to for like the last few years. And so when I told him I was coming out that way, he basically just said, "All right, well, I'll make some phone calls and we'll see what we can do." I'm really just trying to meet a few of the guys, have a couple beers, and you know, talk a little bit. And it blew up into something I couldn't have imagined.
That's pretty amazing, man. Like, so that's one of the things that we try to get perspective on a lot. I know Drifter does a lot of communication with some of like the European clubs. What do you think, like, your initial impression of like just the differences between American culture and European club culture?
Well, from what I saw, I was lucky enough to, again, when I went over there, I thought it was gonna be a few guys from the local chapter. And about a couple weeks before, you know, my flight, I got a flyer in my messenger that basically said it was the Chosen Few American Party. And I inquired about it. You know, I asked them, you know, what was this about? And so, oh yeah, this is going to be a good party. And so when I get there, the entire Chosen Few Europe organization, you know, they have countries they have Sweden, Belgium, Italy, France, and they have multiple chapters in all these areas. The entire organization was there, and their families, their kids, their wives, their girlfriends, and it was much bigger than just me and a few guys. It was me, the entire club, their entire support club network, and everybody just came to have a good time and kind of, you know, not to kind of be too into it, but it was everybody wanted to come meet the Chosen Few American. And it was fun. You know, I took so many pictures that night. I generally don't take a whole lot of pictures with people just because, you know, you never know with social media these days. But that weekend, that trip, I took as many pictures as I could, both from my own phone. Everybody else had their phones. They all wanted a picture. I obviously obliged everyone. It was just the way they do things over there. You definitely feel the when we use the word brotherhood a lot in this life, and sometimes it ends up being watered down. But I'll say for the time that I was there, the brotherhood that I experienced both from the Chosen Few Club and their support club, it was something completely different than what I'm used to out here. They're very in tune to each other and supportive of each other. And the way they govern themselves is very organized. And it was a bit of a shock because, you know, when you're meeting a national president here in America, it's one guy. You know, whatever club it is one guy. I met 3 national presidents when I was over there, and they're, you know, Sweden, Belgium, France. I met all these national presidents of the same club, and it was humbling to be amongst, you know, so many people that really love the club life and the amount of love and respect they have for my own club, we share a name, but that's about it. But the amount of respect that they have for our club is what drew me out there. And when I got there, I was definitely not disappointed. They knew a lot about our club, our history, our history, and our founder, and they were very eager to learn more. As the night went on, and we drank a lot more. We just started talking, and it was a good vibe from the first moment I met him. And I'm not a big drinker. No shame, you can attest to that. I'm not really big, but I probably drank more in that one night than I did all of last year. These guys were having me drinking champagne and wine. We're in France, so I'm just like, okay,
Yeah, I was about
let's
to ask you.
let's do what the French do. And I was drinking my champagne and wine and enjoying it. But overall, I mean, the vibe I got the brotherhood was really strong there.
Well, that's right on, man. I'm glad to hear that. Did you get a chance to ride around Europe at all?
Yes, I did. So that was one of the things I told him when I went out there. I wanted to get some miles in Europe on ground, and they made sure that happened. Day two, we meet at the clubhouse. We have breakfast, which consisted of more beer and some French fries, and they bring out they asked me, Harley or sport bike. I said Harley, of course. So they bring out this old fat boy and give you someone's helmet, someone's jacket, and all right, you're gonna ride up in the front next to the road captain, and we're gonna go visit all the different chapter clubhouses. Sounds good. And that's what we did. We just rode around, northern France and visiting all the different chapters, getting some education on, how this chapter opened up and how they started, what they contribute to the group as a whole. They have a chapter that pretty much just works on bikes. So if you need your bike done, you bring it to that chapter. Yeah, just riding around France and visiting all the different chapters that was on my bucket list for the weekend and for my trip. And we got those miles in, and it was cold as hell, but I wouldn't have had it any other way. Just to get some miles in with another group and to ride around another country. It was memories that can't be forgotten or faked or anything like that.
That sounds like a blast, man. One of my dream rides is to ride all along the Mediterranean, to start in Spain and go all the way either to Rome or even down into Croatia and Greece. I think that would be just pretty freaking awesome.
Yeah, I was riding around France was good. I definitely want to be able to go out there and just rent a bike and just ride all around, because we think of distance differently here in America. Especially in on the West Coast. I can ride 10 hours plus and still be in California if I go north.
The guys in Texas are laughing at that right now.
I know. They can ride 20 hours and still be in Texas. Yeah. But you ride, an hour and a half, 2.5 hours in any direction, based in in Germany, for example, which is always my home base. You ride an hour and a half, 2.5 hours from Germany, and you are in another country. And so the distance is really, it makes everything more accessible. When we were at the clubhouse in Lille, France, we were only about 4 hours ride from London, England. If you're going under the tunnel, so that kind of puts it in perspective. You ride for 4 hours here, you're in Vegas, almost to Phoenix, and in Europe, you pass 3 other countries. So it's kind of it's eye-opening how small the world can be when you actually start visiting some of these other areas.
So here in the States, I know if certain clubs got together like that and just rode all over, 4 or 5 hours, there'd be a big police presence. Did you have any problems with anything like that?
Not at all. The whole time I was there with these guys, and this party was not quiet. It was not secluded. It was in the middle of a city. Not a big city, but it was still a city. Not one police officer bothered us. I didn't see any the whole time I was there. And none of them bothered us. We just rode and just enjoyed the ride. And it was just, again, a huge difference from out here. If you see a big group riding, 9 times out of 10 there's going to be police nearby. And we were just riding around with no harassment, no issues. And that was also another, a little bit of a culture shock. I was expecting them to be at least waiting for us, but, to be not messed with at all. It was great.
Nice.
So for those that don't know, we have like you said earlier. I mean, we share a name with this club, and really that organizationally, it's not connected. One thing that I enjoy is that there's never been like an ego thing to where one's trying to overtake the other. You know, and it's always been like a mutual respect, and to where we can hang out and support each other. You know, in our own ways. The organization that you were with is one of the chosen few organizations. There's like a different one in Europe as well, isn't there?
There was a different one in Ireland, which has been shut down. As I think maybe 5 or 6 years ago, Ireland was shut down. But there's, I want to say, if memory serves, I think 4 chosen few groups in the world, with chosen few, with my club obviously being the bigger one, and then chosen few Europe being the second biggest one. So the other one was New York, and there's a club in Iowa as well, but they're a little bit smaller. So, but there's overall 4, but we have the most. I have the most ties with the European guys. Again, because, you know, like-minded individuals kind of flock together. And after seeing their club passing on my Facebook one day, I just decided to reach out and kind of get a little more perspective on how they came about. They have a Confederate flag as part of their patch, and I was very curious about how they got that. And I wanted to get the answer in person and not, you know, over social media. So that was one of the questions I had when I went out there. And my assumption was that someone from America went out there, started the club, but I got a completely different answer. And the answer that they gave, and I'm not giving anything away, you know, they'll tell you. For them, the Confederate flag stands for, you know, the rebel flag, which is in the South, that's what they refer to it as. And they have a skull, so their patch basically means rebel to the death. And they fully acknowledge that the Confederate flag over here can be interpreted differently, but they interpret it their way, and I have nothing but respect for that.
That's good to hear.
So, have you started planning for the next 3 years?
Yeah. So the next trip is going to take me to one of the guys was there, the Swedish national president. He asked me the next time you come to Europe, come to Sweden, and, you know, we'll do it the Nordic way. And so the next trip is going to be London, England, Ireland, and then again I'm going to leave the family and I'm going to go to Scotland, Norway, and Sweden, and back to England. So I'm going to try and spend a few days, and I want to go to Norway just to go, because it's on the way to Sweden. and then I'll go to Sweden and go hang out with those guys for a couple of days, and then, you know, kind of just bounce around like I usually do. I always try and get at least 3 or 4 countries in, you know, during my trip.
Oh, right on, man. Scotland's going to be beautiful if you go in the summertime. I don't know if you've ever been there, but
I'm definitely not going in the wintertime. So
no, that's beautiful. There's a great circular route in Scotland. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Really good, really cool clubs.
The English trip has been on the radar for a while, and I definitely wanted to get my the mainland Europe kind of out of the way. So, you know, going to the islands is going to be a big deal. Definitely going to look forward to hopefully riding out there, try and get some miles in whatever country I can get them in. So it's more of a pride thing for myself. You know, I love just racking up the miles, and to have miles in other countries, you know, it's one of those things, you know, you can't forget, you can't take away, you know, that experience. And so that's what I'm looking forward to the most.
So you said you can ride from France to England, and there's like a tunnel that you go through?
Yeah, there's the I can't remember what it's called, but it's a tunnel. It's only about the tunnel is maybe 2.5 hours long, and it goes under the English Channel, and it connects France and England.
So how do they work the lane switch? Is there like just a part where it spirals and you go from the right side to the left side?
So I'm assuming that part happens when you get out of the tunnel, when you get into mainland England. I haven't been through it yet, so I don't know how the switch is over. But it's weird because I thought everyone in Europe drove on the wrong side of the road, but it's really only England. Everyone else drives on the right side of the road. So they need to really kind of get their shit together. I mean, no, sorry with the language.
No, you're good.
Fuck that. Say what you want.
Well,
Yeah.
I've seen you ride a Dyna like it was your R1. So I feel like if you're going through that tunnel and you just ride along the side of it and just spiral around, if you get that on video, I mean, I think that would be a stunt for the ages.
I think if I get enough speed, I could probably do it. You know, if I enough speed, enough liquid courage, I think I could probably do it.
I don't know if you actually ride. I haven't been through it, but I think you actually put your vehicle on a train, like a flatbed train, and then the train takes you. I don't know if they. I mean, I might be completely wrong, but I
Yeah.
thought you put it on train first.
Yeah, again, because I haven't done it, I'm not sure how it exactly works. But I was when I was out there, I did think about it briefly. If I had enough time, could I actually go to London through the tunnel? And it was about I'm gonna say about 4 hours away. And I just didn't have the time because I still had other countries to visit, like the Czech Republic and stuff like that. So I just didn't have the time to go visit.
And that
But I
London
will next
traffic
time.
is that London traffic is like LA. You're not gonna like it.
Yeah, but you know, if I'm going to experience traffic anywhere, I mean, why not be in another country? I mean, again,
Right on.
even sitting in traffic is going to be fun. I'm not one of these guys that gets frustrated in traffic. I usually sit. Before I had, stereo on my bike, I had my headphones. I just sit, listen to music, enjoy the sights. And enjoy the ride. I mean, it doesn't matter if I'm the only one on the highway for 100 miles or if I'm in the middle of traffic. I just sit and enjoy the ride.
Hey, do you work on your race bike? Who tunes it?
Yes. So I do about 90% of the wrenching on my race bikes. I do have a shop that did the engine work, and I have the electronics are handled by someone else, Flash Tune, out of Orange County. They handle the electronics on the bike. But yeah, I do 90% of the wrenching myself. It's a point of pride. I like to know what's going on my bike, what it does, who provided it, what it's made out of. I use only the best parts. And so, I just do the wrenching myself. There's always, again, it's a point of pride, and it helps keep my mind occupied, to 3 a.m, working on the bike, getting it ready for the race in, a couple of weeks. It's fun. I never get bored of it. I work on bikes now. If someone has a bike and they have, problems with it, need maintenance done on it, bring it to the garage. I'll work on it for free. Just bring me, a beverage or two. And we can sit back, have some conversation while I get your bike ready.
That's the old way of doing it. I like that.
I'm a student of history, so I like to think that, in whatever small way I can, I want to contribute to that history. I don't want to take away from it, and when I say that, I mean, I have respect for, all the clubs out there that, kind of paved the way for everyone today, whether, whatever club you're from. I'm not going to name any names, but whatever club you're from, whatever your makeup is, I got to have respect to those who've earned it. And, regardless of the makeup of your club, if you put those years in and you contributed to the life and the culture, I don't want to take anything away from that. So like you said, the old guys used to sit there in their yards and work on bikes and drink beer and, have the kids running around. I want to, have that lifestyle. I like to continue that lifestyle. Again, for me, it's fun. It's nothing better than for me to, see a brother ride off on a bike that I just did maintenance on, or, he's going on a cross country trip and he needs his bike looked at before he goes. It's nothing more pleasurable for me than to see that brother or that person get on his bike and ride off that I just worked on. If I can keep somebody on ground, I'll do it. Doesn't matter what club you're from, doesn't matter anything. If you want your bike worked on and you want it done by somebody that's good, bring it to me.
Sounds like you were made for club life, man. That's right on.
That is one of the things that, when I look at my experience in clubs, and I'm sure Drifter, I'm sure you can kind of probably relate to it more than most people, being from such an old historic.
Because I'm old.
Because your nation is old. Yeah. But yeah, that too. But no, I mean, just having being part of organizations with such rich histories. I almost look at like this. I don't really want to call it an epidemic because I don't think it's new. I think it's something that's always kind of happened. Mm-hmm. Drifter, you there? Oh, you were frozen. Yeah, but just these pop-up clubs that kind of come up and just spring up out of nowhere. I look at those situations and it's like, what's the benefit of that? To where there's so many, like you said, so many long-standing nations out there with so much history and so many people that can teach you like what's worked and what hasn't worked. Versus like just going out and just starting like everything and like you have all the answers right off the top of your head. Like I just don't understand the appeal when there's so much wonderful history out there.
Yeah, me either. I mean, why would you? I mean, you take somebody, like Pacman here. He knew what he was looking for, and he found exactly what he was looking for. Can you imagine trying to build what you already have? Take a lifetime.
Yeah, I mean, NoShame kind of spoke to it. Some of these clubs have been around for ages, and they know what works and what doesn't work. And like you said, I don't want to pick on the pop-up clubs too much because everyone does. But at the same time, there is something to be said for the club that just jumps up and thinks they know how a better way to run a club than someone that's been around for 30, 40, 50, 60 plus years. You're not going to reinvent the wheel. In my experience, a lot of it has been, as we all know, a lot of it's ego based. A lot of people get confused on what it means to be a man. I mean, and honestly, what it means to be a man. And they think that if they're not the top dog of this club, then no one's going to really take them seriously or whatever. I have no idea what they're thinking, but it's all stupid. I mean, when you got a club that's been around for 60 years and you just pop up with your 12 guys and some patch you found on, some image you found on, Google Images, for me, you get no respect. It's one of those things where, again, you're not reinventing the wheel. You're not teaching us anything new. If anything, you can sit back and learn from the other clubs. And again, there's clubs in my area and SoCal that have been here for years. Not some of them as long as my club, some not so long, made up of different groups. But there's even times where I go to their events, I go to their parties, I intentionally seek out their, the OGs, what we call OGs, the older members. I'll go to whatever nation having at an annual their party, and I find the OGs and I talk to them and I get their experiences. And again, I'm a student of history. I'm never above learning. And for me, it doesn't matter what that patch says. If you're willing to tell me some stuff that I can learn, I'm willing to take it in. And I think that a lot of people these days don't want to do the work and they just want to kind of get the credit. And that's where the pop-up club, epidemic kind of comes from. Everyone wants to be the top and no one wants to learn and take the time to earn your position and your place in this world, because this is a whole different world from, civilian lifestyle. And I say that as someone ex-military, it's different from the military. There's aspects that are similar, but it's different from that. And these pop-up clubs don't have that history or that, that baseline to kind of grow from. When you find your patch logo off of the internet, what does it mean to you? Nothing. My patch, which was created, means something to me. I'm Drifter. I'm sure your patch means something to you and your brothers. And even outside of your own club, people know that patch and people respect that patch and the history behind it. These pop-up clubs, you have no history. So what can you really kind of contribute to the culture if you don't even know what you are?
You get the same old buzzwords. It's all about our brotherhood. And we do it different. No, you don't.
And then you get the people that bring up the we wanted to do it the traditional way. Well, how do you know what the traditional way is if you're not a part of something that is in fact traditional? One of the things that you brought up, and you spoke to it a couple times, is people that are kind of like after a position or after a title and things like that. And this kind of bleeds past like that pop-up club thing, and maybe into like new members, things like that, when people first patch into a nation, and your eyes might be big and you might be chasing that title. And I know me and you have talked about this before, Al. My favorite times on my club journey have been times where I have not had a position, and unfortunately, those have been few moments, but those are cherished moments in my heart. And you guys feel the same way about that, or am I alone on that?
I like the job. I like the job, but I don't want to have the responsibility. So right now, I'm the secretary for my chapter, and I like having things organized and kept a certain way, and I like the history, that we take down. But I don't want to be sick.
I mean, I'm like I said, No Shame and I have talked numerous times about this. I didn't come to this club looking for a position. I never wanted one. I really just wanted to kind of, be a regular member, ride my bike, experience, what it means to be a part of this kind of club, a traditional old club with a lot of history behind it. I just wanted to be a sponge racking up miles, and that's what I wanted to do. Fortunately, it sometimes happens that you don't, even if you don't go looking for a position, sometimes it finds you, and you're put in a position of, I don't want to do it, but I think I could contribute. And sometimes you kind of get pushed into an area where you kind of have to take it. And I never wanted a patch, but at the same time, I do take pride in the positions I do carry. And I try to do the job. Like you said, you love the job. I try to do the job to the best of my ability. And without the patches, without the vest, I'm the same person wherever you find me at, you'll see. And I think that too many people kind of forget that part, and they become the position and not the person. And I think that's where you start running into problems, is when you forget who you were before you had that president patch or that vice president patch or that secretary patch. When you were, Joe Schmo prospect and you were just hoping to get through and get patched in, now, you have a little bit of a position of power, and now you start kind of morphing your personality around that. And I think that's where the problems come from, and that's, any nation has that problem, I'm sure. Again, if there was somebody else that can do the job, by all means, take it, please. I don't want the headache. But, until then, I'll do it.
That's funny because I know Pacman's not a patch chaser, because he called me at one point and said, "Do you want to split responsibilities on this job?" Like, I'm trying to get another person added to this roster here. I'm like, man, you want to try and stack something else up on me?
I need help, man. I can't be doing all this by myself. Coming to the West Coast is huge. I need help.
It is. It's interesting to see, though, and one of the main things is, like you brought up, like both of you brought up, that you enjoy the job, but not the responsibility. I think that's one of those things where people that enjoy their time in the military, I think enjoying that service is probably a big piece of that. And I know that's something that the club world brings to me, specifically, is that ability to serve something larger than myself. So for me, it's with or without a title, I'm going to do the same amount of stuff. I'm going to try and do as much as I can to help the machine keep moving in the best way that it can possibly move. I know for some people that gets misconstrued when people do that as like somebody's chasing a position versus, they're just being proactive and taking, like you said, contributing. And I think that goes to, just always doing your best to assume the greatest out of your brother versus assuming the worst out of him. Does that, you mentioned brotherhood being different in Europe. Is that something that you felt over there, that people were kind of just building each other up? Whereas sometimes, in this side of the pond, maybe you see it a little bit differently?
100%. Yeah. The guys over there, they have patches that they wear they get every 5 years, they get a new patch going up their zipper line, basically. These guys don't care about position. Not once did I hear no one introduce themselves as their position. They introduce themselves with their name. And I do that all the time. I never do the whole, hey, I'm Pacman, vice president, children. I never do that. I just say Pacman. I don't really care. And I found in Europe they were kind of the same way. They didn't really care. And my thing about it is, I've always said, I really, even when I became vice president, I didn't want to put the patch on because of, the added, again, the responsibility that it carried. Do the job, yeah, of course. I'd like to help out my club in any way I can. But I didn't want to wear the patch. And the only reason I did, and I'm sure there are other people out there like this, the only reason I did is because I don't really like going to parties, but as the vice president, I get in for free. So if I don't want to pay to be somewhere I don't want to be, so I put the patch on, and I'll go to your party for free and hang out, patronize the bar, and kind of keep it going. But
so the truth comes out. Now we know.
Yeah, if not for that, hey, I'll go to your party, but it's one thing that I don't want to party. I'd rather ride and do the random clubhouse pop-ups that I'll go to different clubs and I show up at their clubhouse and just have a chat with some of the older guys again, just talking to people. I would much rather do that or go on a ride than go to a party. That's just my personality. I'm not very outgoing in that respect. I'm a little bit more, kind of closed in when it comes to being in the party and being in front of everyone. I'm more background, and I prefer that. So being the vice president kind of takes that away from me a little bit. Again, so I'll do the job all day, with or without the position, and those are the kind of guys that I look up to, and that the guys that do the work regardless of position or not. And they're just trying to make the club better, trying to make their chapter better, trying to improve relations with other clubs. Those are the guys that I kind of drift towards. And they're not hard to find. Every club has them. Just like every club has knuckleheads, every club has those guys that are really just trying to make the life in the club better. And those are who I drift to. No pun intended, drifter. But
I was feeling a bond here. Come on, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's some people, again, it comes down to ego a lot of times. And I'm not saying I'm some kind of ego-free person. I have an ego just like anyone else. You ask me about racing, I'm going to tell you outright, I'll beat anyone out there.
That's not what NoShame said. He said he was kind of slow.
But when it comes to the club, you have to humble yourself and understand that it doesn't make you less of a man to want to help or reach out to another club or talk out problems instead of any other way of solving them. It doesn't make you anything less of a man. I think if anything, it makes you more of a man that you're willing to talk to another man and solve a problem. If it can be solved over a beer and a conversation, let's do it. It's much better than the alternate. And, we've seen throughout the decades, we know what the alternate brings. It's time we have some conversations. And if I'll have to, initiate the conversation, I'll do it. I have no problem reaching out. If it's if the conversation is returned, great. It's the better. We're all the better for it. So it's kind of my take.
It's a good one.
1,000% agree with that, man. That's one thing, if I could hope for, everybody wants everything to stay the same. That's a big theme in like the MC world is, do things the old school way. If there is one thing that I wish that we would change is that people would pick up the phones before they started picking up friggin' guns, picking up knives, picking whatever it is, throwing fists, throw me a text, like there's so many things that could be solved with simple conversations. And I know you're on the same mindset as that. There was a conversation I was having a few weeks ago with another individual, and he was saying, regardless of anything that happens between Club A and Club B, everybody deserves to go home. And that's it. I kind of had to pause and think about that. Like sometimes they don't. Sometimes us individuals, we're complete dickheads and we don't deserve to go home. But what does happen is their families deserve to have them come home. Everybody's wife deserves to have their husband come home. Or everybody's son and daughter deserves to have their dad come home. And that's one of these things that, like, I think a lot of clubs and, people like in the heat of the moment, they let their pride and their ego get to a point where it's like, you're not thinking about the second and third order effects of these things. You're not thinking about that kid that's got to grow up knowing that his dad was killed on the streets. Like, that's some heavy shit, man. And if you're going to do that over something minuscule, like, get the fuck out of here. It's one thing to have a scrap with somebody and, beat the fuck out of each other and then grab a beer afterwards. But when you start getting into like these permanent situations, it's ridiculous and there's no need for it. Especially when all of us are so similar. We have way more in common than we have apart.
You actually hit the nail on the head right there. It's one of those things where, like you said, every family deserves to have their person come back, and we've all said the same thing. We all know what we signed up when we joined these clubs, but at the end of the day, I also signed up, to ride my bike with freedom, and if I can't do that, then what are we doing here? If we can't, enjoy the road and ride our motorcycles, freely, obviously there's going to be some issues that can't be resolved because we're 30 years into it. But when I use the analogy a lot of when I'm in a clubhouse situation or a club environment and someone bumps into me and spills my drink, I'm not going to get mad. I'm in an environment where that's a high likelihood it's going to happen. So, hey, the guy apologized, no big deal, man. I'll give you another one. 9 times out of 10, they'll replace it for you. Then some people will take that as an opportunity to, hey, man, you bumped into me, and now we have a big issue over a bump, a nudge. It's kind of one of those things that people they really need to take the ego out of it and stop thinking that being loud and being boisterous is going to make you respected or feared. It just doesn't work with most of us. I mean, the loudest one in the room is the softest, and that's 99% true. And like you said, I pick up the phone and have a conversation. These things do not need to be permanent. If we can solve it over a conversation and go home, that's always the best option. That's always the first choice for me, is to pick up that phone and call my contacts and let's solve it between us, and then we'll push it down. It doesn't need to go anywhere else. You were going to say something?
Oh, I forgot, man. I was listening
Sorry
to what
about
you
that.
said, and that's right on. I like that. Oh, no, I remember. So you were talking about you're all alike. All these, especially the big league clubs, like what you guys are. You're all alike, right? To some degree. So it's really a matter of geography. If this guy had been born in such and such place, he would have gravitated towards these clubs. If he had been born in another place, it would have been the other clubs. But he's still the same guy.
Yeah.
So I definitely understand what you're saying there.
I mean, and you see it all the time. I mean, there's people who, there's one guy born here and then his cousin down the line is born somewhere else, and they might end up just through that piece being in rival nations. So you think they're going to go to the family barbecue and just duke it out every time? That's ridiculous. It's a perfect point that we're all victims of circumstance in that sense. I would likely not be chosen few if my 2 brothers that I deployed with didn't first find chosen few. It's like, that's a victim of circumstance. I could be in any number of clubs. I could not be in a club at all. It's just how my journey ended up unfolding. It's not like I was born knowing like I'm going to pledge my allegiance to this bone cross and I'm going to fight everybody who's not me. Like, that's not how it happened. There's so much good experience out there, especially when you get on the road. I think that is like the dividing factor between people with the mindset of like, let's fucking enjoy the ride and let's get along as much as we can. How many miles are you putting on your bike? How much of the country are you seeing? How many different experiences are you getting to have? How many different clubs are you visiting? How many different areas to see how things are done differently? And I know everybody that's a part of this conversation right now, we've had those experiences, and it bleeds into even like inner chapter drama. If you find a chapter in any club that's bickering amongst themselves, I guarantee you they don't ride together. I can guarantee you they do not get on their bikes and ride together. 1,000% of the time. If you have 2 chapters in the same area of the same club that are butting heads, stick them in a pack together, send them on 700-mile trip, and watch them come back best fucking friends. Like, the road solves everything.
Especially if it's cold and wet.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
that's the good
you
stuff.
actually make a really good point there. That, if you were out riding your bike and putting those miles in, you don't really have time to bicker over small things. You're coming back talking about, oh, remember what happened when we broke down over here? Remember when we got to this city or this state? I know I make it a point when I go on my rides, I'll reach out to other clubs that I know and say, hey, do you have anybody in this area that have a clubhouse? And I'll try and stop by and, chop it up with them a little bit, have a couple conversations, have a drink, and then, I hit back the road. But, it's like you said, if you're focused on the inner club or outer or intra club rivalries and BS, you're missing the point. And, like you said, stick them together and tell them to go to, Oregon, and they will come back best friends because they have shared experience, and that shared experience is what's supposed to bond us all together as not just club members, but as motorcycle riders. We got, most of us got on these bikes to enjoy the road and the club life. I wasn't born into a club. Like I said, I didn't even know motorcycle clubs existed until the movie Biker Boys, which I thought was fake.
Oh, no.
So I thought it was fake. I didn't, again, growing up in LA and Long Beach, I don't know if I was just completely blind or ignorant. I didn't see any of that. And when I saw the movie, I thought it was fake. So when I first came around the clubs and I saw some of the clubs that were in the movie, I'm like, did y'all this become a thing after the movie? And I was completely ignorant to the
Some of it did.
Some of it did. But seeing some of the clubs in there, that had a big presence, Soul Brothers, for example, I saw them in the movie. I didn't know it was real. And so when I saw those guys in person, I'm thinking you guys came from a movie, and they were like, no, we were here before that. But it's cool to get that kind of, experience. But anyway, to go back to what I was saying, spending time on the road is where you really bond. And some of the most fun I've had is sitting on the side of the road waiting for a tow truck. Somebody's bike blew up. I was coming back from Oakland, which should have been a 5-hour ride, turned into 15 hours because an engine blew. And we had so much fun at this gas station parking lot for almost 10 hours waiting for a truck in the middle of nowhere. I still remember to this day very vividly. It was so much fun. And I was still a prospect at the time. And to enjoy that time, that was when I really knew I made the right decision as far as my club future. And, that kind of sealed it. But, like you said, if you go get some miles under your belt, you don't have time to argue. You don't have time to bicker. Just enjoy the sights, man.
Well, there's a threshold too. There's there's this point where you're riding to get to the destination, and you could throw your playlist on and zone out in the playlist, and you can get there. And then there's that point in time where it's like, I am so tired of listening to the music that I really enjoyed 10 hours ago. And you want to just zone everything out. You turn the music off and you kind of just start going through stuff in your own head. And it's almost therapeutic. Like you start unpacking things that you might not normally be able to get unless you took a heroic dose of DMT or something. So there's that piece of riding that just brings clarity to everything. And that's the thing about putting a lot of miles on that I really enjoy, is that clarity that you feel afterwards.
That's where a lot of the stories that I write come from. On those long rides, my mind just starts wandering, and I create these stories.
I actually have I have a mental issue that I'm working out, but one of the things that helps with that is writing. And again, I may have a destination. My destination could be just a state. I don't really know where in that state I'm gonna go. I don't necessarily know how I'm gonna get there. I just kind of go. And like you said, sometimes I turn the music off. And I remember riding through Nebraska. I'm just riding through fields, and it's sunset. There's no one on the road for the last 30 miles. I'm cruising, and I got so distracted by just the ride, I completely ignored the deer that was 20 feet ahead of me, and he just bounced across the road and immediately snapped me back to kind of focus. I'm like, oh, I got to remember I'm on a motorcycle here. Let me pay attention to where I'm going. But, it's one of those things that, going out there, it just really does seem to clear the mind. And you really, like you said, you get to that point where I'm riding to a destination, but I do want to zone everything out. I do want to turn my music off. I do want to just hear the engine. I want to hear the exhaust. I want to hear the waves if I'm on a coast. I want to hear where I am. I want to be in the moment. And if you haven't experienced it, it's hard to explain to those that haven't. But those that have know what I'm talking about. And they know that point of where, it doesn't matter when you get there, how you get there, what you're going to do when you get there. It's just the fact of you're just riding the ride. And when you get to that point, I think it really does bring a sense of clarity.
Yeah, you're in the scene. You're not watching the scene go by.
Yeah, you're making the memories and things, and these are things that you're going to be able to tell. Everyone's going to ask you later on anyway because you're going to see whatever, and you're going to be able to tell them. But I always say when people ask me how was the trip, and I tell them how the trip was, and I'm like, you want to go on the next one, so you can kind of experience it with me. And I try and I can ride, they said 2,000 miles, whatever. We can do that, or we can just go 500 miles. It doesn't really make a big difference to me. We'll ride at your comfort level, and we'll have a blast doing it.
Yeah. Fuck yeah, man. Well, shit, we're about an hour. I think that's a pretty good spot to end it. Giving it what all of us love and what brought all of us together, and that's riding the bikes. But fuck, man, I appreciate you coming on the show. Appreciate you sharing your experiences with me, and with all of us. Look forward to hopefully you writing some more articles pretty soon, because we had a guest article from you a while back under a name we shall not reveal unless you want us to. But yeah, man, I love the conversations. You and I have always kind of seen eye to eye on things. So hopefully we'll have you on again sometime in the future.
I actually have a guest submission almost ready for you. I'll send it up to you.
Right on.
Nice.
Hey, it was nice to talk to you and see your perspective, man. I really like that.
Yes, sir. Same here.
Don't
habit, not gonna break it.
Well, I appreciate everybody tuning in and listening to us. This episode should be up in a couple days. Look forward to seeing a lot more content. Drifter, you're going to be going down to meet a couple of the miscreants from staff pretty soon here, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm calling it the Jax Teller Memorial Run. So gonna give him a good send off.
So yeah, hopefully you guys get to see the adventures of Drifter, Punk Rock, and Dave here pretty soon. But until then, appreciate you guys, and y'all take it easy.